Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for some of you, of course. Welcome to the session Getting into Medical School. It's always a pleasure to moderate this session. My name is Elena Hernandez Ramon. I'm the director of the pre-medical program at the Office of Intramural Training and Education here at NIH. And I am very honored for having this outstanding set of panelists and also very excited to see so many people already watching this session. Okay, so let's start. We only have 1 hour. Our panelists will introduce themselves, and then we are going to go to the first question. Please start thinking about your questions and typing that in the questions box, and we'll start with introductions. Can we start, Dr. Demisha Rankin?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Demisha Rankin. I am an anesthesiologist by training, but I also serve as the Associate Dean for Admissions at The Ohio State University, College of Medicine.
All right, I guess
Dr. Quezada, please go ahead. I was muted.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Quezada. I am an associate professor of medicine in the Division of Gastroenterology and Hepatology. I serve as associate dean for admissions as well as assistant dean for faculty diversity and inclusion at the University of Maryland School of Medicine.
Thanwill you. Dr. Will Ross, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Will Ross. I'm a professor of medicine in the Division of Nephrology, Kidney Diseases at Washington University School of Medicine. I am Associate Dean for Diversity and Principal Officer for Community Partnerships for the School of Medicine. Glad to see you all here.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Mr. Bill King.
Yes, greetings, everyone. My name is Bill King. I am the Vice President for Recruitment and Application Services at VCOM. We're the largest medical school in the southeastern United States. We have 4 campuses in Virginia, Auburn, Alabama, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Monroe, Louisiana. I have a background in student affairs, residency, directorship from an administrative side, and of course in admissions. So very excited to see you all.
Thank you very much. I would also like to thank our interpreters today, Christina Riley and Wynette Smith, and also Dr. Kristen Zukowski, who is an pre-medical advisor here in our office, and she was going to be helping us with questions, managing questions. All right, let's start with the first question. So please start typing your questions in the questions box, and I'm going to start with the general question we very frequently receive in our office. This is for everyone. What would be the ideal candidate at your institution? If you could please include 3 to 5 experiences, including stats that your school is looking forward to see. And especially during these times of the pandemic, we have a lot of students very concerned about the limited possibilities of having a clinical exposure and other community service and other experiences. Who wants to start? Can we follow the same order? Is that okay?
Sure, I'll go ahead and get started.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think it is important to recognize that a lot of institutions use what we call holistic approach in terms of evaluating candidates. And so it takes more than just one particular thing to make or break an application. It's important to understand that we look at things in a holistic manner. And so there are 3 major categories. We look at your experiences, we look at the attributes that you bring, and then we look at metrics. Of course, we know when it comes to experiences, both the quantity and the quality of the experiences that students may or may not have had have been impacted by COVID. And so in terms of hours, and when you think about research hours, volunteer hours, shadowing hours, even the quality of shadowing has changed, such that students may have only had virtual experiences or limited scribing experiences. And so I think from an admissions perspective, we're looking at both the quantity and the quality in terms of how you describe your experiences. That'll be very important. In terms of attributes that we're looking for leadership, we're looking for commitment, persistence, resilience, all of those things that will add value to you being a physician. And so I'll stop there because I don't want to hog the time there.
That's fine. Dr. Quezada.
Okay, thanks so much. I mean, I definitely agree 100% with everything my colleague Dr. Rankin just said. Probably everyone on this board, I think, is on board with that. It might be that we really, and I way. We feel very, very strongly
Since Dr. Quesada has lost some audio, I'll go ahead and start, then maybe she can get hers back up. Is that appropriate? Great. So in terms of I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Rankin. She articulated that very well. One of the things that we've done here at Washington University is really redesign our curriculum. And so historically, we've always addressed basic sciences and, of course, clinical sciences. But we recognize that tomorrow's physician has to be quite familiar with all the social and structural determinants of health in order to have an integrated approach to health promotions and to clinical care. And so our curriculum has been restructured to really weave in social and behavioral sciences, along with professional identity formation, with the other triple arms of research, education, and clinical work. And as a consequence, we're looking for those students who really know how to have had a history of engaging in the community in a meaningful, longitudinal manner, who truly understand it and can articulate those social and structural determinants, because we're going to weave those in through all 4 years of the curriculum in a longitudinal manner. So we want to see evidence that students have actually done those things, that they've been embraced they've embraced community work, not in an episodic manner, to put something on an application, but they can talk about the philosophy of why they're doing that. And they can become really apparent as we go through the application. They really have done this in a meaningful way. I think that is going to allow us to, through our enrollment management process and through the holistic review that Dr. Rankin mentioned, it's going to allow us to really tease out those students who will really flourish here at Washington University.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Dr. Quesada, you're back. Do you want to continue with your response?
I am back. Thank you. I didn't even know I had left yet. I don't think so. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how far along I got, but I was able to capture, I think, most of what Dr. Ross also said. So now I'm following 2 wonderful, I think, comments and agree 100% with everything that's already been said. Along the line that what I was going to add was that, in addition to what's been mentioned, that we also at Maryland really feel committed to recruiting people who are truly committed to serving others. And so that engagement and service in the community, and also how that's presented in the application. So to really be able to see that there's been some self-reflection in those experiences, that one has really kind of explored and started to understand what their own biases may be that they're bringing into that work, and then learning from that in the process. And hopefully that's something that we're also bringing into our patient interaction, some awareness. And we also have incorporated that actually for the last 4 years now, awareness of implicit biases for both our students and for all of our faculty as well. So I think, I'm always most impressed when I see that kind of writing and that description from applicants, where not only are they sharing, this is who I worked with for this many hours, this is where I was and what I saw, but also what did I learn from that? What did I learn about myself? And also what did I learn about what are some of the systemic and social barriers and structures that have placed people in a position that they even are in need of this kind of service at this time.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. King.
Well, I have the pleasure of building on 3 wonderful people who have gave you all some great comments, and they're all incredible ones. Another piece that's specific to my school, but I would say would probably be something very important for you to look at every school, is look at the school's mission statement and what they actually stand for. We have a very strong commitment to appreciation for diversity, for community service, for having an interest in working with underserved populations. We are committed to making a difference in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeastern United States region. So we want to emphasize your connectivity. It could simply be going to school in that area, or being from that area, or having some other type of connection. Our metrics, we look more highly at GPA than MCAT, but of course MCAT is very important. Our average MCAT is a 503. Our average GPA is a 3.6 for our incoming students. We also have a master's program for students who may not hit the GPA mark and need one extra year of work that moves in. I would say, to summarize the candidate who is really successful, because many of you will have those types of metrics and may fall into some of those other characters, is that there's a sort of unspoken question that we all have when we make admissions decisions at VCOM, and I think at most of the medical schools, and that is, is the person who I see in front of me the kind of person that I would like to see take care of my family? Does that person have those qualities that a caring physician and person would want to have? And so if you have a lot of community experiences, we all know that there have been some shortage of opportunities for medical experiences. You can enhance what you have been able to do by showing your commitment to caring for people, period. We also have some really great virtual physician experiences. Every 2 weeks, I host a program on Zoom where I have 4 physicians and I interview them, and they explain their reasons for going into medicine and what they do with students when they shadow them. And we have a bunch of other experiences. So I know you'll be able to get our email addresses. You're welcome to email me. And whether you're applying to VCOM or not, attend our events. Those can just be extra things that you put on if you're going to apply to the Ohio University, or Washington University, or University of Maryland, or any of the other fine institutions in the country, as well as ours.
Okay, thank you.
I want to piggyback.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on what Dr. King just said? I think he was really, I really appreciate those comments. I intentionally did not give you our scores, our range, because the focus is on holistic approach. And then we're going to look at the wide range of scores. So I'm going to ask the students, when they're looking at a particular school, that they not just ask what is the average MCAT or average GPA. That's not going to give you the right information. You're going to ask to look at the range. And I think that, and recognize that, students are going to excel across a wide range of scores.
Thank you. Thank you for your additional comment. We always recommend MSAR and making sure that they see the ranges, right? And they fall into the range of the schools they're applying to. Fantastic comments. Thank you. I'm going to combine 2 questions I have here, because I know there is a lot of concern of people who don't have clinical exposure at all. And I see other questions from students in early stages in college, junior year, who are worried because they haven't had any clinical exposure so far, but they still have some time to do that, right? So what would be your advice in those 2 cases, especially those who haven't had the clinical exposure and still want to apply now?
I think it is, first of all, you're able to get clinical exposure in lots of different ways, whether it's through volunteering, if you're so fortunate to be able to donate your time. But I do think it is very important so that you understand some of the facets that are involved, because I think it's very difficult to make a very informed decision, which is going to take at least 4 years of medical school, plus maybe 3 or more years in residency training. So you want to make sure you're making a well-informed decision. So I think if you were applying to our school, if you didn't have any clinical experiences, whether it be through scribing, whether it through be transporting a patient throughout the hospital, or volunteering at a blood bank, blood donation center. If you don't have that sort of clinical experience, you would be at a disadvantage, because I think it would just be very difficult for you to understand some of the dynamics that go into the physician-patient relationship, and really observing even the time commitment, the level and the type of communication that is required, and the type of problem solving that medicine involves. So you do have time. And I will say one other comment, that be careful when you guys are documenting in your application actual worked hours versus projected hours, because projected hours are exactly that. And we all know in the past year, things changed. And much like I can't get paid for my salary for next year, even though I'm projected to be working there, projected hours are not the same as actual. So just be cognizant of that.
If you agree, I'm going to repeat Dr. Zukowski's favorite sentence. Honesty and transparency is your best friend, right? So you want to
Yes.
see what they have done and what they want to do. Okay, anyone else additional comments about this?
Yeah, if I could add to that, I mean, I 100% agree, and I just want to affirm that it would be the same thing for us at Maryland. We want to consider those individuals who have had the opportunity to have some exposure, who we hope are coming in with some idea of what they're signing up for. So, you know, not only is it going to strengthen your application, but hopefully it's really strengthening your motivation and your understanding. So it's really for you, it's to your benefit that you get some of that clinical experience any number of different ways, like Dr. Rankin was mentioning. And I think all of us understand that this coming cycle really is, I think, the applicant pool that's most impacted, much more than last year. So we probably are going to see, I think, less hours. The quantities will probably be different than what we've seen before. You know, I think for us, again, at Maryland, like, we never had a minimum number of hours. We really did stress a lot about the description and depth of your reflection and what you understood from the experience, even if it was relatively short-lived. And the other thing I would add is maybe you haven't had any opportunity to do anything thus far, but, you know, fingers crossed, in some areas of the country, at least, things are getting a little bit better. They're opening up. There are some opportunities now. You can, I think, in a lot of places, maybe you've already submitted your primary, but if there's a secondary application, you can share your plans for what you are looking to do, you know, what are you planning for in the coming year, and then maybe you can follow up with one update letter or something, just to describe, these are some of the clinical experiences that I've had now, just to kind of solidify that you are putting in the effort and interested in getting that experience and then sharing that with us. No, I don't think anybody likes like a monthly update, because we get thousands and thousands of applications. So we don't need multiple updates, but maybe one update if you really didn't have any experience at the time you submitted your application, but you know you will have something throughout the cycle. That would be probably a worthy update to make.
Fantastic, thank you. If there are, if you have similar comments, we can go ahead to the next question, because we are receiving a lot. Or if you have additional comments, you can do that briefly.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, building on what's already been said, which is wonderful. There's an end goal here, and that is that we all want to know that you understand what you're getting into, that you understand what the role of a physician is, what it takes to become a physician. And it would really be helpful if there's a way that you can get to us from a physician, from a practicing physician, some communication that they see in you what they feel is a successful physician. If you can kind of get to that end goal, how you do it isn't necessarily, the world is different, and so you may need to get to that goal a little bit differently. And it could even be, from people who have volunteered, I think, as Dr. Rankin had mentioned, like a blood bank, or even working on a hotline, doing, some creative types of things. What I'd like to hear from a student is an explanation and not an excuse, not to say, I wasn't able to shadow. Okay, so what did you do to be able to explore why you want to do this? And for them to have a really nice laid out plan. Be a little careful, in my opinion, about virtual experiences. I just spoke about some that we have, and those are great. But generally speaking, when at least our admissions committee, when you've only done something virtually, it sounds like you didn't maybe work quite as hard, because there are other things you can do. So if you need to be creative and come up with a couple different experiences to get to that end goal, by all means, please do it and incorporate virtual experiences into those. But get to that heart of what it is that we need, and that is that we want to be convinced that you understand what it's like to be a physician, and hopefully a physician can vouch for you in some manner.
Dr. Hernandez, can I make one other comment? And I promise it'll be brief. There's also nothing wrong with waiting a year and giving yourself some more time. If you really don't feel like you have enough experience, clinical experience or service experience to speak of now in your application, even before the pandemic, many people would take a year or 2 or 3, to really make sure that they're prepared and ready. And the majority of our incoming class every year has taken time off. So nothing wrong with giving yourself extra time to get that experience if you need it.
Thank you for mentioning that. I think we have those cases where it's very clear that they may need to have some more experience before making this important decision. Any additional comment, Dr. Rose?
I know. I think everyone said everything quite well.
Sounds good. Let's move to the next important question. And this is about interviews. So some people are asking, what do you look for in students once they go to the interview stage? What specific things do you like to see in a student that you are unable to observe in a paper application? And I would like to also ask you to complement this. What is the format you are going to use for interviews this coming year for the students in this cycle? Dr. Ross?
I'll start off. I think it's important to really convey the sense of passion about what really excites you. And I say that with some equivocation because we know students have different personalities. And we don't want the students who are type A to be always the ones who are, garnering all the attention. We want students who are, kind of low-key introverts like myself to also be considered. But introverts have something that excites us. And so you have to really be, when you're preparing for the interview, you have to look back at your application and say, what in this really makes me feel good? I mean, what do I want to just talk to everybody about? And that is what you should highlight. That has to come through. It comes through in a virtual format. It comes through in a in-person format. And it comes through when we're at the discussion level with our admissions team, because we want to say, does a student really have that, that fire in the belly? And so really think about that, hone those skills of being able to really expound on the things that really excite you.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add something else? And I need to say, we tell our students, you can have the perfect speech, but if you don't have excitement, that is not going to work, right? Any additional comment from anybody else? If you want to share the format you're using in your schools, please.
Sure. We're gonna allow students to make a choice between virtual or in person, so they'll have that opportunity.
Sounds good. Dr. Quesada?
Yeah, so at Maryland, I mean, one thing that we learned from our last year and doing remote interviews, we just had a really wonderfully diverse pool of applicants, more so than we had before, particularly from a socioeconomic standpoint, and also a lot more out-of-staters that kept their interview date later in the cycle. So we see that as a huge benefit of a remote format. So for that reason, we're keeping virtual interviews, but what we're complementing that with that we couldn't do last year is the opportunity to have in-person visits to our campus with student-led tours. And this will be specifically for our accepted students because we don't want anyone who's still waiting on a decision to feel pressure or think that they need to come visit us to in some way impact the admissions decision. So we want that already to be a done deal, and it's purely for their own, their choice. If they want to come and visit us, then they have that option.
But we're doing the same at Washington University. Okay.
It's okay. Whoever is fine. Dr.
Rankin,
go ahead. There's a delay here.
I'll go ahead and say that we're doing the same thing. I really appreciate Dr. Quesada's comments, and she really nailed it in what we're trying to do. So we're going to have all virtual interviews for the same reason, and we'll bring the students in who are accepted for interviews. And I want to say we're doing this because it also helps level the playing field, recognizing the cost that's borne by students to do all these multiple interviews. We got a lot of comments from students saying, thank you, I've saved so much. I really need to, I would not have been able to afford to come to your school. So it really was a benefit to our students to do the virtual interviews.
I agree wholeheartedly. We're going to be virtual for our interviews, and then we will have optional on-campus tours at a frequency probably once a month for all students that are offered an interview for us. The benefits and the savings for the students were tremendous, and that cannot go unrecognized. But at the same time, a lot of students don't realize that here in Columbus, Ohio, we have more than just cornfields and cows, okay? Those are very important for the economy, but Columbus is actually a very thriving city. So good Midwestern values, and so it's nice to be able to see that.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll just add for our process, we will have our preview days as well for students who do virtual interviews, and we're putting a lot of things in place so that while we are offering the option to students, that everyone is treated equally, whether they choose to do an in-person or a virtual interview, which is super important. It's a little tough, but it's not impossible. It'll be done.
And just to add to that, anyone that is involved in our tours has nothing to do with the day of interviews, because it is completely separate and completely optional. And I think students, we really do want you guys to hear that your offers of acceptance will not be contingent upon you coming to visit. I think that is very, very important. If a school says that, please believe them. We understand the benefits of cost savings with the virtual platform.
Can I just say also, just a general comment, we're representing 4 schools here, 4 different schools, but for the most part, our comments are very generalizable. And so you can, as students, you can pretty much look across the spectrum, and you can feel comfortable that most schools will have a minor variant on what we're saying. We're pretty much speaking for most medical schools.
Sounds good. Yes, we have 5 schools today. So sorry, 4 schools today. So that's a good picture. Okay, let's move forward to the next question. This is different one. What does a great secondary essay look like? How do we take full advantage of limited character word counts? Anyone wants to start?
So your comments were on personal essay, did you say?
Secondary application, because they have a very limited number of characters. So how do you take advantage of that?
So one of the things, so students should consider those optional essays as critical. We need to get us, and let me give you an example of why that's critical. In one of our secondary essays, we ask, what unique circumstances or what challenges have you overcome in your time as a student? And irrespective of where you are, economically, racially, religiously, anywhere, you have challenges. And so we want students to be able to really reflect and talk about how they actually became introspective and gather themselves and really took a leap forward. And when you see that, don't leave that essay blank. That's a really a prime opportunity to talk about how resilient you are and will be as a physician.
And I also think
anybody else, and yes, and whoever wants to continue, if any of you can just address the diversity question from many schools, because I am seeing other questions about that, how they should approach it. And one question is, should we reflect or mention our own biases?
I think that can be challenging because you never know who your reader is going to be. So I think it is important to always be professional in your
We seem to have lost Dr. Rankin also, so maybe we'll go on to someone else.
I'm frozen.
comments. Don't be too polarizing. Don't be offensive. And I think sometimes it's hard to understand and maybe a trusted peer or a trusted advisor review those comments. And what you don't want to do is simply copy and paste
The
portions
ranking, we
from
lost you for
your
a few
personal statement.
seconds. If you want to summarize, because we lost you and we are losing you again, it looks like. Let's give it a couple of seconds. No. Okay.
I think she
yes,
was
let's go
getting
ahead.
ready to give some really good advice, which was to make sure you have somebody else review your responses. That's true for the personal statement too. Definitely don't let your eyes be the only set of eyes that sees your writing. This is too important a document to not get feedback and insight from people who you respect and you know are looking out for you. So I definitely agree with that. And I think we're all looking for authenticity. We especially with the diversity question, and we can kind of tell when people are trying to use buzzwords or just sort of say what sounds right, but when it really is coming from the heart, I think that's what we're looking for.
Sounds
I
good.
think
I'm
that's
sorry,
such a
Dr.
good
Rankin, we lost you for a few seconds, but I think we heard the main message. Yes, go ahead, Mr. King.
I think the last comment by Dr. Quezada is just so important, that it comes from the heart. Everybody has different experiences themselves, and has you know, you want to express the heart that you have. Some people's experiences may not be seen as traditional diversity experiences, but there could be a religious background that you've had or been exposed to. It could be working with, you know, a group of individuals through a volunteer activity. At our school, we have a couple of our campuses that are in very rural areas, and individuals who are from rural areas really have some very special needs and so forth. So, you know, we traditionally think of, and it's very important to all of us, that we see diversity through you know, areas of ethnicity, race, underrepresented individuals in medicine. But if you have some different experiences, you can show how you have an appreciation for different people and how you can also translate that in that area. One of the things I would caution students about, sometimes in interviews, it's almost something that admissions committees just kind of roll their eyes at, that someone mentions that they went to, maybe they're from a larger area and they went to a smaller area, and because they went to a college or university in more rural area, they feel that they've seen the diversity of that state. Living on campus doesn't really give you a microcosm of what it's like to live necessarily in Alabama when you go to, Alabama State or Auburn University or something like that. So just be a little cautious too of who your readers are and what they're going to interpret your experiences to be.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. King. Also, with regards to talking about who you are, we want you to really spell out. We recognize that students have multiple identities. And some students are reluctant to talk about that for fear that they will be labeled, or they don't want to say that part of the identity shouldn't be relevant. That they want to that they want to be considered irrespective, based on some structured approach to grades and other metrics. But our identities really are critical. They're the lens through which we will see our patients, or the lens through which we see medicine. And so we want to hear about how your identities are relevant to you. So comment on those. Don't feel that you have to, you hide all those identities. And I'm talking about the full spectrum of identities. You could be a low economic white. You could be someone who lives in the Hamptons in New York. You could be a Latinx, new immigrant, Latinx, Nuyorican. It spans the gamut, but those things are part of you. Please talk about how those things make you into who you are.
And if I could just add that the reason that diversity is such a focus and should be is because it is a driver of excellence. When you have multiple perspectives, different roads traveled, that informs your decision making, that informs your passion, and that's what we're looking for. The diversity just simply means everyone is not the same. Diversity in background, diversity in thought, and all the other variables or labels that exist. That is what we're looking for.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. We have then other questions about research. So this question says, how much is research valued for your programs?
I would say that the term research is, can be interpreted many ways. We want students who have been exposed to hypothesis-driven work, who have some independent explorations into an area that's where they can create new science. I mean, so there are many ways of calling that research. It could be new science in public health and health promotions, new science in the microbiome, genome studies, new science in translating a new treatment for a rheumatological disorder. So all of you have had exposures to creating this new science, and we want you to spell that out, and that's going to be important for us. We're looking for that. When I say creating new science, it doesn't mean that you have to have a year and a half of research in a basic science laboratory. You have to have 2 publications in Nature and Science, and then you've had multiple presentations across the country. That doesn't happen as much, and it won't happen as much with our new curriculum until your later phase of time here. And so, but I think it's important that you have that. It is important that you have that experience of creating new science, and we're going to be looking for that in our applications.
And to add to that, I would say that not everyone, research is important to be able to demonstrate that critical thinking and that critical rationale. And it doesn't have to always be in a science. It truly can be in sociology, studies there, psychology, math research, or it doesn't have to be in a science per se for us, but we definitely expect our students to have some experience in research.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments?
I would add when you're preparing your application, also make sure that the research experience you have, you reflect accurately and with honesty. It's very easy to, especially if you happen to be listed as an author on a publication, to make it sound like you did a whole lot when you didn't do too much. Remember, in the interview process, what we do is we look to validate what you've written. And when you have a PhD who does research and they see this really cool thing and they read all about it and so forth, they're going to ask you and they're going to want to know about it. And they're going to be so enthusiastic. And when you can't explain it, yeah, it doesn't look good. So just make sure that you act, whatever your role was within research, that's okay. It is that is your experience, but don't overstate what that may be. At our institution, and I represent an osteopathic medical school, and many osteopathic medical schools have kind of a range of views. Some don't require research at all. Some require a little bit of research. At our institution, we love to see research if you're passionate about it. If you're not passionate about it and you put your emphasis in a clinical area, that's just fine. But again, don't think it's a box that you must check off and then exaggerate it, or if you are not good at something, if you're not excited about it, it's going to come out when people ask you questions. So just recognize that if that isn't what you're looking for, there are plenty of schools that have a variety of experiences, from very little research to a lot. Obviously, a dual program, you would need a lot.
Yeah, if I could add it, Marilyn, similarly, we don't have research as a requirement for the MD only program. We love to see it if you have it, but if you don't have it, that's okay. If you're applying MD only, as long as Mr. King said, your strength is going to be in another area. But if you're applying for a dual degree, MD, MPH, MD Masters, obviously, MD, PhD, then absolutely we do require research for those programs. And similarly, I was just going to say, know what sort of the so what, or what was the point of the research that you were involved in, so whether you were doing basic science and it was a lot of pipetting or gel running and that sort of thing, or it was clinical and you were doing a lot of data mining on spreadsheets, be able to explain what your role was, but also understand that it was a piece of a larger picture and what was sort of the bigger picture or question that was being answered.
And it may be useful to you as well to explore what some of the options are at schools. Of course, many people know about MD, PhD, MDO, PhD programs and combined programs, but many of us also have some emphasis in where you can use some of your electives for research if that's something that you're passionate about. We actually have the DO degree with a research distinction, which is an extra certificate. If you present your research in 3 or 4 public forums, you attend a couple extra classes that we offer just sort of as an extension. You can receive that extra distinction, which is a certificate, in the same amount of time, meaning the same 4 years. And that can be a big plus when you're applying for competitive residencies. So many schools have different variations on the traditional, because the DO PhD program, I think many people will say, a lot of people apply for that, and then when they realize the extra time and commitment, sometimes I kind of back off and say, well, you know what, maybe I should just do one, and that's okay. But there are some other avenues too that are between the full dual degree.
All good comments. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to other place now, which I think is very important. We have been receiving this question very frequently, especially in these last months. If you have overcome a mental health issue in the past, should you mention it in the application? Would it be a disadvantage for you?
I think the application should be used to highlight your strengths, and how you frame it is important. I generally wouldn't advise really giving anyone anything to have a bias against you. If you frame it in a way that I wouldn't list my diagnosis, but if you frame it in a way of something that you've overcome or challenges that you've overcome, I think that would be better received. Again, this application, the purpose of this is showing your passion for what you're committed to. And if you have a passion for mental health, then I would say focus on that. I just don't think it is to your advantage to say, hey, I'm struggling with depression, or hey, I have an anxiety issue. I think what's more important is that you overcome that in preparation for medical school, because it will be challenging. You will be stressed. And so I think framing it in a way that highlights your ability to overcome, or framing it in a way that you are passionate about mental health. I think I would just strongly discourage you from saying I have bipolar or I have anxiety. I wouldn't advise for that.
Good. Any different or additional comments?
I agree 100% with that statement from Dr. Rankin. I think that we've had students who state that they had they had depression, or they had an eating disorder, and that through counseling and working with others, they were able to really become much more outspoken advocates for individuals with those disorders, and they joined a certain committee, and they became part of a community organization. That's the strength that Dr. Rankin has mentioned. I think that provides value. Otherwise, I agree wholeheartedly. Be cautious in disclosing that information.
I think
any additional comments? Yeah.
I think it's also important to recognize that on an admissions committee, there are a very seasoned group of individuals who are looking at whether the person who's presented in front of them will be successful over the next 4 years. And you don't want to, put doubt in anyone's mind that that person may have some issues that come up when they're under stress, under the most stress that probably anybody could have, which is in medical school, over a 4-year time frame and so forth. So I think everybody made just great comments. If you feel that it's important to show you overcame something because you really did, that is your choice. Don't leave anything open-ended though for people to think that, oh, something might come up, when this person hits, 3rd year and so forth, because they had certain concerns and so forth over certain issues. Occasionally, and it's not quite a mental health issue, but people will talk about some of their issues with dealing with people. And I think it's important that you also recognize that seeing patients is dealing with a variety of different personality types and so forth, and you need to give us the confidence that you'll be able to work with a wide range of people. So comments like, I get along with these kinds of people, but when someone complains a lot, I have a hard time with that. These are people who are sick. They're going to be complaining. That's a complaint. So, just be careful of that kind of perspective.
Sounds good. Any additional comment, Dr. Quesada?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I think what I was going to share is, I think the way we read that is again influenced so much by how you frame it. So if it is a lived experience that's important to you and that has really impacted what your interests are now and then activities that you've engaged in, and ultimately if it's something that I can see and feel really confident that you've developed a skill set that's very unique and actually is going to strengthen your preparation for the oncoming inevitable stress that not just medical school, but residency and things beyond. I worry more about actually residency than I do medical school, but I will say, unfortunately, there are people who discover anew, mental health issues during the process. And so sometimes I do think if someone at least had a chance to figure this out before and has found the coping mechanisms that work and understand they need to reach out and ask for help, like those are the sort of things that I think at least give me calm and I do think are a strength. If, as Mr. King was saying, if there's a feeling that there's something kind of open-ended or it's sort of well, I'm just sort of managing this on my own, or that I see a reason to be concerned that these triggers that are inevitably coming are, that you may not be prepared for, then that is going to be a concern for the committee.
And I would say if you're on the fence of whether you should or shouldn't, disclose anything, I think you should think about, is it relevant to your application and to us understanding how you will be as a medical student? And if it is, and it helps you in the process, then, I think you can kind of lean in one direction. But if it's not really relevant, if it's just, if it is part of you, but it's not necessarily relevant to the process, you might lean in another direction.
And, I continue to go on, but I think it is very important to realize that well-being includes mental well-being. And so I think even as you are considering the schools, look to the resources that they have that are supportive of the student body, because it is never our intent to make anyone feel like something is wrong with them. No, everyone has challenges and stressors and they need help. Everyone needs help at some point. So it is okay that this is who you are, but just make sure you frame it in a positive way.
Wonderful.
Sounds good. Yes, I think that is a good conclusion of discussion. Okay, I have another interesting question. We have a few minutes, but I think we have time for this one and hopefully another one I'm seeing here. How are your schools taking into consideration different student backgrounds when evaluating their experiences? For example, students from low-income backgrounds, racial minorities, etc. And we see that in our office, right? We see people who cannot afford buying books to prepare for the MCAT, for example, and other group of people who can afford private tutors and have much more resources, right? So it's just a matter of resources and not capability. How do you consider these factors?
Well, we recognize, again, that we're looking across a spectrum. We want students from the broad sector of society. And we realize that, that intelligence comes from every sector. And so we actually, and this is not just we, but all of us utilize a a rubric designed by the Association of American Medical Colleges looking at students who come from low-income families. It's called the EO metric, EO1, EO2. And that allows us to look at students who are economically disadvantaged and take that, that factor along with all the other factors that they bring to the table. And we say because that student has this disadvantage, they have a different perspective, they bring diversity to the campus. And it's important that we provide those students with the resources, the economic, other resources they need in order to flourish with every other student. And so we have to be big tent and include everyone in that. And as we include students, again, it's also important that we step up and provide the requisite economic resources and support, social support they need to survive. Not survive, flourish.
Good, thank you. Any other comment?
Well said.
I agree. I think the infrastructure of support is very, very important because it's just not enough to get students in the door. We really want them to flourish.
Yeah, I
Fantastic.
think the only other thing I'll add is I feel like it means to me, like if I see someone doesn't have as much volunteer hours and they're, I understand that because, maybe they also have a couple, instead of that, they've been getting paid work, and, that they need to supplement their income. It could also, to me, honestly, I think the MCAT is a marker of opportunity more than a lot of other things. And so if I see an individual whose MCAT score is not as strong, but I see that also that lived experience in their background, to me that there's an association there, and that kind of helps provide that context. And again, it's not just about what might be less than, but what's more about this person, that they're bringing that unique and important perspective to medicine. So it is definitely, I think, seen as a benefit and a strength.
And I think if you go back to the concept that I mentioned before, an explanation, not an excuse, that really helps us to put things into the right perspective. And if, as Dr. Quesada had mentioned, if maybe your MCAT isn't quite as strong because of your background, but you have a great GPA and you've worked really hard, highlight that. That's an explanation. I did have some challenges because of, my background, but as you can see, I applied myself to get really strong grades, and I'm doing better and better on standardized tests. That's an explanation.
Sounds good.
Yeah, an excuse would be, they never taught us that in my school before. I mean, it might be true, but it doesn't help us.
It makes sense. Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. I hope we have time for this final question. And yeah, we'll see if we have time for another one. What ways can an applicant make sure the schools they are applying to are not only a good fit academically, but also culturally?
I think you're going to have to visit the campus at whatever point is appropriate. And speaking with students is always one of the best things that you can do, because students are going to tell you what it's like and so forth. I mean, we all honestly want to tell you, but we're not there right now going through that experience. And even if someone's a graduate of that school, the school's a little bit different. At our school, we have ambassadors that we can have you talk to. We provide you with some of those opportunities, but if you contact us and say, hey, can I talk to a student who might be from my alma mater, or someone who has a similar background to me, someone from our Student National Medical Association, which is our diversity club, just so that I can kind of, see, wait until you're accepted to do that kind of process, but do that before you make a deposit at the school and, really see what it's like. Students are going to tell you the truth. We are too, but they're going to have a different perspective.
I think that's the best advice, connecting with the students and asking them about where do they live, what are they doing in their free time, and also just, how are they connecting with their classmates and working together and learning about what student groups exist at the different schools. Ideally, you'll have a chance to connect with them at least on your interview day, and if not, beyond that as well. We also have an SNMA, LMSA, a PAMSA, Women in Medicine, LGBTQ plus interest group. We have our South Asian Medical Student Association and Muslim Student Association. Those are all together in a Student Diversity Council, and we actually work with them very closely so that on your interview day, you should have an opportunity to meet some of those students. And then definitely once you're accepted, we make sure that you're reminded that these groups exist, and then you can start those connections before you come to campus to get to know those students.
Additional comments?
I think I agree with all of those comments. And I think even if I back it up to like where to apply, I think you have to do your research. I think starting with your in-state schools would be a nice recommendation. And then where else would you like to go? Because guess what? Now you got 4 years that you get to maybe live in a new place, but is the culture right for you? So most medical schools have a website. They have opportunities to connect with students, as was mentioned. I just think you have to do your research and be honest about what is important to you.
Also think about the patient population that you'll be caring for. So learn about what kind of patient population do each of the institutions serve.
Yeah, I agree with all those statements. I would add that students should explore the expanded fields that we have in the medical school admissions requirements, the MSAR document. And before, schools were stating, well, here's our mission. And it was kind of hard for a student to look at that mission and say, well, this looks like, what's the difference? It looks like the other school's mission statement. So now we're asking schools to expand on that. I mean, what are you doing to really make your school supportive of initiatives in the community? And what is your commitment to diversity across the spectrum? Spell that out. And so the student then will have a clearer sense of how they fit. I don't want to use the word fit. How that mission really relates to them, and how they will they have an alignment with that medical school's cultural alignment, as well as obviously academic alignment. And so explore that new MSAR expanded field. It's going to give us a lot more information so students can make that comment about, do they actually feel comfortable culturally in that school's environment?
And look at the model that the school has for third-year clinical rotations. Many schools, many MD schools, for instance, have 1 or 2 very large hospitals that a lot of the third-year students go to. So you kind of have a good sense of that. It might be within the same community. There are a number of DO schools that have 10 or 15 different clinical sites, and they could be, in a variety of different places. You may not be comfortable in a rural setting for a year. You may, find it very exciting that you could be in, somewhere that's like near the beach or something like that. And doing a little bit of that exploration. We're so focused on you getting into medical school and seeing what it's like to be in the first year, because you can't really see what's beyond that. Third year, you learn a lot. And your clinical site could be a very significant part of your adaptability and the culture that you're looking for.
Great, we're 1 minute away. So before going to the very last sentence, everyone, I'm going to ask everyone to advise to our students. I'd like to ask you if you are okay if we share your emails. Are you happy with that, everyone? Okay, so Kristen, please go ahead. She has your emails. So we have a lot of questions. I'm sorry we couldn't cover everything, but we have only 1 minute. So I'm going to ask everybody just to please share one sentence that can inspire and motivate and inform our students. Dr. Rankin.
I would just say also look at the faculty members. Who are you going to be learning from? That's something to consider as you apply to medical school.
Okay. Dr. Ross?
What is your passion? What is it that makes you excited when you wake up in the morning? I mean, what drives you? And the things that you should have expounded on in your personal statement, that should really just come out of your application. And so please talk about your passion and really show that passion, demonstrate that passion when you interview.
Mr. King?
Have the goal of getting into a few different medical schools, and then use your gut to decide which one is the best fit for you, because you should trust in yourself at that point.
Dr. Quesada?
I think maybe just the only other two things that we haven't said yet: work closely with your pre-med advisors. They have your best interest at heart and are a wonderful resource for you. And apply earlier in the cycle if you can. Many schools have rolling admissions, and this gives you a big advantage. So set yourself up for success that way. And the reason why we have these kind of not requirements and expectations that we're talking about is because medicine is hard. It is a sacrifice. It is a long it requires dedication and commitment, and we you know, it's hopefully nobody who's signing up is signing up for something they think is going to be easy. But it is tremendously rewarding. Like most things in life that are a challenge, they're also beautiful and rewarding and a wonderful field. So I hope that inspires you, that you're up for the challenge, that you're ready to bring diversity and new perspective to this profession that is already wonderful, but will be so much better with you in it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. This was great, very informative, very insightful. Thank you for our interpreters. Thank you, Dr. Zukoski. We'll see you next year. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.